Welcome back to the NBA Rundown. On today's show, we're going to talk about that absolutely, if you will, historic beatdown by the OKC Thunder of the Memphis Grizzlies in Oklahoma City a little earlier in the day. Also on the big show, we're going to talk about what happened in Los Angeles last night as the Minnesota Timberwolves basically shocked and awed the fans in Los Angeles with what was best perceived as an upset victory, though the LA Lakers actually only had one more win in the regular season. That's just how crazy competitive the Western Conference was during the regular season. Look, I've got all of that, and trust me, a whole lot more coming up on the big show today. All right, as always, I am Dave DeBaugh coming to you live and, of course, on tape from the heart of the Silicon Valley. When you have a chance, do check out the national.live. That is our new sports website. We're in the process of getting it up off the ground. If you have anything you want to actually go out and write, there is an actual contribute button on the website. So check that out, thenational.live, when you have a chance. Now, in terms of this particular historic beatdown by the OKC Thunder, they ended up winning the game by 51, and it was a game in which it was not actually in any way dominated by SGA. Now, I don't know about you, but I have probably been to 20 plus weddings over my life. And I can tell you that you could be sitting at a wedding and you're sitting there just wondering, when is this thing actually going to end so I can go to the bar and get a hopefully overpriced glass of bourbon or whiskey that the soon-to-be wife's family is actually paying for. I can tell you, watching this basketball game today, it was hard to watch at times because it just seemed to never end. The beatdown did not actually stop. Now, a lot of times in the NBA, in the regular season, you'll see teams, especially in this modern day era of teams who are just happy to shoot three-pointers from anywhere, basically, on the court. There's always that possibility that a 20-point lead can dwindle pretty quickly in the NBA. And I was watching this game and I kept thinking, well, the Memphis Grizzlies are actually going to find a way to get themselves back in this game. And that certainly did not happen in any way. Now, if I'm going to be critical about anything that the Memphis Grizzlies did today, I would begin at the feet of one Jaren Jackson, who put up, a better stat line than Kyle Kuzma did yesterday with the Milwaukee Bucks, who had all zeros across every single category. But Jaren Jackson had 4 points, 2 assists, and 3 rebounds in the game. Look, I love his game, but that is not going to get it done in any game in the NBA for a starting forward, especially a starting power forward against such a good team as the Oklahoma City Thunder are. Now, I will give some props to Ja Morant for once again getting his leg shot up. Probably couldn't even feel it like he did the other night. He did have 17 points in the game, but outside of that, I guess if you're looking at the stat line in terms of somebody that actually scored the same amount of points for the Memphis Grizzlies that Ja Morant scored, and I'll just encourage you to wait for it. That was Marvin Bagley III. So you know when Marvin Bagley III is your highest scorer in a NBA playoff game, that means you got absolutely destroyed. Now, the Thunder certainly had a balanced attack today. Jalen Williams had 20. SGA, as I mentioned, had a off shooting night, or day, I should say. He had 9 points in the first half, actually ended up finishing the game with 15, but he only had to play Michael Jordan's number. He only had to play 23 minutes in the actual game. Outside of that, Chet Holmgren had 19. Isaiah Hartenstein had 14. Dort had 12. Look, it was a total, utter beatdown on the defensive side of the fence for the Oklahoma City Thunder. You know, it'd be nice, if you will, for the NBA maybe to actually give these teams that have had to suffer through the punishment of playing in the play-in maybe an extra day or two to rest. That might actually help some of these teams out, though they are trying to punish those teams for not actually being in the top 6 in each of their respective divisions. So I get that and I understand that, but clearly, as clear as it is, that as good old Bruce Willis once said, water is wet. Of course water is wet. It is absolutely clear that the Memphis Grizzlies were tired and were not prepared to play in the game against OKC today. Maybe the only player that actually seemed to have any legs underneath him was the one who got shot up, which was, of course, Ja Morant. All right, love to know your thoughts and opinions on it. 51 points, historic beatdown by the Oklahoma City Thunder today. All right, and quickly, I wanted to touch on what happened last night in Los Angeles. Now, a lot of people out there have been talking about how the Minnesota Timberwolves, who, as I mentioned in the opening, actually are just one game beneath what the Los Angeles Lakers, the 3rd seed versus the 6th seed, actually posted during the regular season. T-Wolves finished the regular season with 49 wins, and the Lakers actually finished with 50. Maybe the T-Wolves would have actually finished with 50 if they hadn't given up all of those points in the second half against the Milwaukee Bucks about a week and a half ago. That being said, the difference between a 3rd place team in the Western Conference and a 6th place team is essentially non-existent. Now, I understand why a lot of people in the media would actually be favoring the Los Angeles Lakers. I mean, for God's sakes, they have Luka Doncic and they have LeBron James, who, by the way, at least during the first half of the game, did look a little old in the game. But still, I understand why you could come to the conclusion that a Luka, Austin Reeves, and LeBron James-led Los Angeles Laker team would be a shoo-in to beat Rudy Gobert, Anthony Edwards, and I guess Naz Reid. I guess maybe it makes some sense, but at the end of the day, when you actually look at just how deep the Minnesota Timberwolves are and can be, and if you actually get Julius Randle to show up in 5 out of the 7 games in the 7-game series, and I guess maybe I should define what showing up actually means for Julius Randle. And it's a stat line very similar to what he produced last night in Los Angeles. 16 points, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds in 35 minutes of playing time. If they can get Julius Randle to actually deliver that, then this Minnesota Timberwolves team is certainly, if you will, if they're not a favorite to beat the Los Angeles Lakers, they're at least even. Look, I don't think there's a clear-cut favorite in this particular series. Now, if Jaden McDaniels actually goes for 25 every night like he did last night, then the Minnesota Timberwolves should actually be able to handle this Los Angeles Laker team. Because when you look at the overall rosters of these teams, the Minnesota Timberwolves actually, from the top down, to the bottom actually have a better roster. Now, Luka is probably at this stage of his career about equal with Anthony Davis, or excuse me, with the Ant-Man. And then when you look at LeBron James, and there isn't really an equivalent to that on the Minnesota Timberwolves at this point. But when you look at the role players, and yeah, I love Austin Reeves as much as the next person, but when you look at the Minnesota Timberwolves role players, it's Jaden McDaniels. It's certainly not Rudy Gobert, who did not show up at all last night. He had 6 rebounds, 1 assist, and 2 points. But you look at Naz Reid, you look at Dante DiVincenzo, even if you can get Nicole Alexander-Walker to actually deliver something close to 10 points a night and a couple of assists, then the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to be in a good spot. You have to remember that Ant-Man is basically a junior version of Michael Jordan in the playoffs. We saw it last year. And if I were betting on this particular series, assuming everybody stays healthy, I would put my money on Ant-Man before I would put my money on Luka and the Los Angeles Lakers. All right, love to know your thoughts and opinions on all of that. Do drop them in when you have a chance. Hey, once again, check out our brand new sports website at thenational.live when you have a chance. And if you have anything you want to pen, feel free to write it and submit it to the website, and we will get it posted for you and published out for you. All right, for the NBA rundown, I'm Dave DeBaugh. Hey, listen, the NBA playoffs is fantastic. Anyways, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing day.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough,